Hello and welcome back to Understanding the Case Study. We have just framed our approach in order to meet our objective of coming up with a value for the store. And the next step is conducting the analysis. Conducting the analysis is usually the most difficult, but it is really a conversation. And during the conversation, you are asking key questions in order to pull information from the interviewer in order to step through your framework in order and end up at meeting your objective. So what I mean by that is you're going to focus on your first step is here, revenue, and you're going to ask questions all around revenue until you feel comfortable with coming up with that estimate. And when you feel you have, you move on to cost and ask questions around cost till you feel you can estimate the cost, and so on and so forth. So without further delay, I'll jump into questions on revenue. And there are two ways to do this. There's top down and there's bottom up. So the first top down is what that focuses on is, let's say their questions all related to is this store part of a group? So let's say each box is a store, and we know information about the entire group. We know the dollars that in revenue that are sold for the entire group, and we can divide it by the number of units and get the cost for a unit, or an estimated cost for one of them. So the questions in this case would be related to is this part of a group of stores or a chain, and if it is, how much revenue does the chain make, and then how many stores are part of the group. So if you have an answer to those three, let's say they say yes, it's part of a chain of 100 stores, and we have last year we sold about $100 million in goods. With those two pieces of information, you can estimate that per store it's about $1 million in revenue. So that's an example of how you would do a top-down estimate. And how do you know if it's top-down or not? You just have to start asking some of these questions, and if they don't have the answer to them, you have to move to bottom-up, which is exactly what it sounds like. Is you are looking at that specific store and saying, okay, what are the products that are sold at this store? And putting the price for each of those products. So I'll put price in quotations, price for each of these products. The number of products sold per day, or maybe it's per hour, and then you're multiplying by the number of hours they're open per day, and then days per week and weeks per year, and what this will give you is the estimate for 1 year. So all your questions in this case would be around what products they sell, how and just asking each one of these, do you have the price information for each product? How many hours per day? How many days per week? How many weeks per year? So I'll just do the calculation out. Is, let's say for the meals that they have, let's say they're a little pricey, that they're, let's say all enchiladas, burritos, and fajitas are what they sell. Let's say it's $15 for the meal regardless. It's a one-stop shop. It may be more complex in the real case. You might need to break this out, but I'm just making it simple for in this case. And let's say they're open 10. They're open from 12 to 10, so they're open 10 hours per day. They get 10 people per hour. about, and they're pretty consistent, and they're open for 6 days a week for about 50 weeks a year. So doing a rough estimate of the revenue, it's about 450,000. If that was the answer for those questions and you went down this route. You also, and so those are two ways to estimate the revenue, and you need to use your judgment to figure out which path to go down based on the questions they answer. As we move on to cost, they may give you cost in two different ways. They may give you cost in the top-down way. So they may give you cost for a group, or more than likely they may tell you, you may ask them, well, do you have any cost information? So that's a question you would ask. The cost information, they might ask you, well, cost for what? And then you might list out different things you want the cost for. So let's say the staff, the rent, the food, the other overhead. So those are just 4 different areas in it. Let's say they gave them to you. They said the staff is 100K. The rent is 100K. The food's 100,000, and the overhead, additional lights and all that is 50. So the total costs in this case ended up being 350K. So that's an example of the top-down answers. Another is they might give you the if they don't have it for overall, they might give you the cost per product. And if they give you the cost per product, let's say in this case they tell you, well, actually for every meal, it costs about $10 figuring the staff, the rent, and the food. And you go, okay, well, figuring that, I have to my revenue is 15 minus the $10, and then I have to multiply it the same way, this is $5 left over after the costs are incurred, and then in this case you'll end up with 150K. What you'll want to do is they give you the costs in this respect. You may want to ask, are there any other costs? So that's another question. If you're going down this route, are there other costs? Is something you would probably want to ask at the end of either of these. And let's say in this case, yes, we haven't considered overhead. That is another 50K. So in this case, let's pick a number to use so that we are consistent. Let's say in this case the revenue is 140K, and we figured out that it's 450K minus our total costs here. Let's say that they gave us the $10 per meal, so this ended up turning out to be 150K, but then we subtracted the overhead costs of 50,000, and then we ended up with 100,000, and this is per year. So this is an example of how you would come up with the revenue over a period of time. But remember, and not revenue for a period of time, this was the revenue, this was the cost, and actually I just skipped to estimating the profit. And remember that the formula for estimating the profit that I just used, even though I skipped it, is revenue minus costs equals profit. So that's what we just came up with, is the profit per year, which is 100K. But remember, we're coming up with the value of the store that we're going to pay for it. And we know that over a period of time, this is generating the final value of this is 100K per year. So we might want to ask, the interviewer, well, how many years are we keeping this investment? And they, the typical answer, if they don't have one, they might say it's up to you, is 3 to 5. So let's say, for the sake of this investment, for the sake of this case, that we're going to say 3 years. And 3 years times 100K per year ends up being the final value is 300K in total in profit. So what's the the question is, what's the fair value to pay? Is it 300K? 300K means we made nothing over the 3 years. And remember, it says we want the 20% return on investment. So keeping that in mind, we have the 20% return on investment, and this, looking at the formula that is up here, final value minus total cost over total cost, we want to know what the total cost is. That is what we should pay. So I'm just going to put X for the total cost that we don't know, because that's what we want to figure out. We know the final value, assuming everything's constant, is 300K. That's that is what this store is going to make for us in 3 years. So this is the formula. This is how I would set it up. This is our return on investment is 20%. That's what we wanted. And if we solve for X, in this case, we end up with 250K as the total cost that we are that we are willing to pay for a return on investment. So that's an example of, I know I skipped some of the calculations, but I'll let you do them on your own. But that's an example of how you would go through your analysis with an interviewer, and then come up with the final value of how much you're going to pay for this store. In the next video, I will go over what a proper recommendation would be, and then also tips for further preparing for case study interviews. See you in the next video.